8 years after the divorce, I ran into my ex-wife and my adoptive sister in a remote little town. In the years since I'd seen them. One had become a superstar, the other the head of the powerful Prescott family, and I was running a tiny hole-in-the-wall diner. At the moment our eyes met, they both froze.Seraphina. My ex-wife quickly hid a medical report behind her back. Isabelle, my sister, slipped a limited edition watch she bought for her brother into her pocket. I calmly finished packing the takeout order and handed it to them. With practiced courtesy. Here you are, ladies. The formal distant address seemed to rattle them, but as they were leaving, Seraphina suddenly turned back. Didn't you say you'd only ever cook for me? I offered a polite, empty smile. The foolish promises of youth. They don't mean much now, just like the people and memories I once thought I could never get over. With time they had all faded to nothing. Through the open glass door, the noise of the street drifted in, but it couldn't dispel the frozen silence that had settled over the diner. The two women who had conspired to ruin me, to cast me out of my own home, now stood at the counter unwilling to leave. Seraphina clutched the plastic bag of food, choosing her words carefully. Owen is injured and needs to recuperate. The facilities here are excellent, so we brought him to stay for a while. Mom and Dad, they came too. She added, do you want to see them? I shook my head, wiping a grease stain from the countertop. No, that's not necessary. Please give my regards to Mr. and Mrs. Prescott. I paused, then added, actually, it's probably best you don't mention me at all. Being associated with someone like me would only tarnish the Prescott name. At that, my adoptive sister Isabelle's brow furrowed. Noah, these past few years we Noah. A young woman with streaks of red in her hair bounced into the diner, instantly latching onto my arm like a koala. I'm starving. The school cafeteria food was literal poison today. I chuckled, ruffling her hair. You say that every day, Gigi. There's a plate of your favorite shrimp scampi in the kitchen. I just made it. Go get it yourself. Gigi just hugged my arm tighter, whining. No, you have to eat with me. Noticing that my other two visitors still hadn't left, my smile faded. Is there anything else I can get for you ladies? The message was clear, but it took them a long moment to shake their heads. Seraphina seemed to drift off for a second when she heard shrimp scampi. Isabelle stared at Gigi, clinging to my arm, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came out. I led Gigi into the back, the curtain falling behind us and cutting off their view. When I came out again, they were gone. Hey, Gigi sat around a mouthful of shrimp. Did you know them? They weren't here to cause trouble. Were they? I've seen them on TV. One's a huge celebrity, the other runs the Prescott Corporation. They're kind of a big deal. I placed another shrimp in her bowl. Just regular customers, I said with a light laugh. If I knew people like that, do you think I'd be running this little diner? I'd have moved us all into a mansion by now. Gigi giggled, then leaned in conspiratorially. I heard that superstar's husband is the one who's sick. The whole family came all the way out here just to take care of him. Must be nice having that many people who care about you. I said calmly, wiping a grain of rice from the corner of her mouth. I knew exactly how much they doted on Owen Prescott. 8 years ago. For his sake, one of them had publicly accused me of slander and assault, sending me to prison. The other had announced to the world that I had taken my own life out of guilt personally, ensuring I was erased from the Prescott family forever. But they worked in perfect, seamless harmony to cast me into a hell from which I was never meant to return. What's this? I was clearing the table when Gigi popped her head out from behind the counter, holding up a small withered ring woven from dried grass. It was the kind you could make from weeds on the side of the road. It was stained with old dark blood. Originally, it would have had a small white daisy tucked into it. Oh, it was the wedding ring Seraphina had given me when we were young. Back then, she wasn't a world-famous actress. She was just a girl, abandoned near the Prescott estate by her foster father as payment for a massive debt. But I found her on a winter night huddled in a corner of the wall. Shivering in the snow, her thin clothes no match for the cold. Her hand had unconsciously gripped the hem of my coat. Against the wishes of my parents and my sister, I brought her home. I used my allowance to pay for a doctor, slowly pulling her back from the brink of death. And so 15-year-old Seraphina stayed, becoming my little shadow. When I skipped class, she covered for me. When I got into fights, she took the punishment. When I was cornered in an alley by a group of bigger kids, she stood with me, trembling with fear, but refusing to abandon me. When we fell in love, we would hide behind the wall of roses in the garden, kissing and laughing like a pair of fools. But then, when she turned 17, a famous talent scout came to the house begging her to become an actress. Noah, wait for me, she promised, kissing my face over and over. I know I'm not good enough for you now, but when I'm a star, a household name, I'll be able to stand beside you as your wife. I will make it. You're the only person I ever want to marry. I knew I couldn't change her mind, so I cooked her a feast of all her favorite foods as a farewell. As she was leaving, she slipped the grass ring onto my finger. One day, Noah, I'll give you the biggest, most beautiful wedding ring in the world. My parents and sister never liked her, but they didn't want to see me unhappy. They used the family's connections to pave her way in the industry. Within 2 years, Seraphina was everywhere. I watched her on TV as she became the youngest actress to ever win the grand jury prize. But the day she was set to return, my hands were shaking with excitement. But that was the same day the truth about my birth came out, that I wasn't a Prescott. I was the son of a pair of day laborers, switched at birth with the true heir by someone who had slipped past the nurses. The day the real son, Owen Prescott, was brought to the estate, my adoptive mother held my hand. Even with Owen here, you will always be a son of this family. My sister ruffled my hair. Her smile unchanged. What's one more person? The Prescotts aren't so poor we can't afford to feed another mouth. Seraphina even canceled a shoot and flew back overnight. She held me tight and swore, I can protect you now even if the Prescotts don't want you. I will. The knot of fear in my chest slowly loosened. Out of guilt, I started putting Owen first in everything. I helped him with his studies, taught him etiquette, let him have first choice of everything. Terrified, he would feel out of place. He in turn followed me everywhere. Calling me brother, I was truly happy then. I thought I was the luckiest person in the world, blessed with such a wonderful family and a love like ours. Eventually, Owen started tagging along on my dates with Seraphina. At first, she complained about the third wheel. Owen would fire back that he was just making sure her intentions were pure. I mediated between them, and they reached a tense truce. It slowly. Without me noticing when it started, Seraphina began to remember Owen's favorite things, to understand his moods, even to remember his birthday. And Owen would casually ask me questions about Seraphina's childhood. It all came to a head during a trip to the mountains, when a sudden rock slide sent boulders tumbling down the slope. I watched frozen as Seraphina grabbed Owen's hand and pulled him to safety. I managed to scramble out of the way, but not before a rock gashed my leg open. In the hospital, she explained through tears. I'm so sorry, Noah. In that moment, I thought Owen was you. I said nothing, but my heart felt like it had been plunged into ice. Something was spinning horribly out of my control. The day I was discharged, I went home early. I even bought a bouquet of roses on the way, planning to surprise her. But there under the rose wall, in the garden, I saw them, two figures tangled together. Seraphina's arms were wrapped around Owen's neck, and she was kissing him with a deep, focused passion. I stood rooted to the spot, feeling as if I'd walked into a nightmare. But the sharp pain of the rose thorns digging into my palm was too real to deny. I charged forward and tore them apart, a shower of rose petals falling around us. Then I slapped Seraphina across the face. She didn't even flinch, but when I turned to Owen, she shoved me hard. I stumbled and fell, my palm scraping against the gravel path. She stood over me, shielding. Owen, he's your brother. What gives you the right to touch him? She spat. Look at you, Noah. You're acting like a madman. Owen stepped up beside her, his face a mask of regret. I'm sorry, brother, but Sarah and I are in love. If we had never been switched, I would have been the one to meet her first. Then he intertwined his fingers with hers, his eyes meeting mine, full of defiance. I apologize. You can hit me. You can scream at me, but I will not give her up. The last thread of my sanity snapped. I grabbed a rock and threw it at them, screaming every vicious word I could think of. Seraphina just pulled Owen further away, her expression one of disgust. You really need to see a doctor. My parents and sister came running at the sound of the commotion. They saw me disheveled and covered in dirt, and their brows knitted in disapproval. That's enough. Owen is your brother. Can't you just let him have this? They stood together, a united front, their faces identical masks of cold disdain, and I stood opposite them, looking like a wild animal. In that moment, all the little oddities, all the strange moments from the past few months clicked into place, but I wasn't ready to give up. I found out where Seraphina was filming and went to the studio, screaming and demanding answers. She stood at a distance, watching with contempt as her bodyguards pinned me to the ground. Don't ever come near me again, she said, and if you spread any more rumors about Owen, you'll regret it. Rage and desperation consumed me. I went to the tabloids. I told them everything. Seraphina's affair, Owen knowingly becoming the other man. I plastered the story everywhere I could, determined to ruin them. I wanted the world to know that the beloved actress I had helped create was nothing but a backstabbing traitor. But the Prescott family crushed the story. That I fought them, screamed, smashed everything in the house, even threatened to jump from a window. All I got for my efforts was a stinging slap from my sister. Have you made enough of a scene? She'd said, her voice dripping with ice. You stole Owen's life. All of this should have been his from the start. We raised you for 20 years, and this is how you repay us. You can't tame a stray. They locked me in the cellar. Days blurred into one another in the pitch-black silence, with only a stale cold piece of bread pushed under the door each day. The darkness was a swamp slowly drowning me, but I don't know how long I was in there. Before the door finally opened, Seraphina stood silhouetted against the light. Our promise still stands, she said. I will marry you, Noah. They let me out, and a wedding was hastily arranged. I wasn't naive enough to think it was because they'd had a change of heart. The Prescott family was powerful, but not invincible. My public breakdown, though mostly suppressed, had still made ripples. If Seraphina were to marry anyone but me, it would only confirm the crazy stories I had told. But the day before the wedding, my adoptive mother spoke to me in the living room. Now that you've come to your senses, don't cause any trouble tomorrow. Owen has been very unstable lately. I want you to go and apologize to him today. My sister swirled the red wine in her glass. Noah, everything you have was given to you by this family. Behave, and we might let you keep some of your dignity. You know what to say and what not to say tomorrow. It was all so absurd, I didn't even have the energy to laugh. Not seeing my silence, Seraphina's face darkened. I'm marrying you, Noah. What more could you possibly want? If anyone should be complaining, it's not you. You're the one who stole someone else's life. Don't be ungrateful. Brother, it's all my fault. Owen started stepping toward me. Get away from me. I snarled, slapping his hand away. He cried out, stumbling back. That my family's expressions turned thunderous. No, what do you think you're doing? Apologized to Owen now. Owen, sheltered behind them, murmured, I'm fine, it wasn't his fault. Seraphina glared at me. No, Owen. You're too kind. Noah. He needs to apologize to you today. A strange look crossed Owen's face. Why don't you make me some of your shrimp scampi, brother? The way you used to make it. Just for Sarah's shrimp scampi. It was a dish Seraphina's birth mother had once mentioned to her. The mother had disappeared, and the dish had become an obsession for Seraphina. To comfort her, I had sought out the best chefs, learning the difficult, precise recipe until my hands were covered in burns and scars. It had become our secret something just for us. She had once made me swear in a moment of passion that I would never make it for anyone else. And now it was just a party trick for her to please her new lover. But the rage I thought had been extinguished roared back to life. I laughed a raw, broken sound. I snatched a priceless vase from the table and smashed it at Owen's feet. The peonies my mother had loved scattered across the floor, and a shard of porcelain sliced Owen's leg. He cried out in pain. My parents and sister rushed to his side. Seraphina had the bodyguards restrain me. She kicked me hard in my injured leg, forcing me to my knees. You brought this on yourself. After that, the scandals about me were everywhere. Under Seraphina's expert manipulation, I was painted as an ungrateful imposter who had bullied the true heir, tried to steal his fiancée, and then resorted to slander when I didn't get my way. Together, my ex-wife and my adoptive sister sent me to prison. And while I was gone, Owen and Seraphina were married in a lavish ceremony. Blessed by all. While I was being beaten by inmates hovering on the edge of death, they were making love in the bed. That should have been mine. 6 months later, I was dragged from my cell, barely breathing, and thrown out of the prison gates like a bag of trash. The snow was falling heavily, the night wind biting and cruel. Just like the night I had found Seraphina, but I wasn't as lucky as she had been. No one was coming for me, no one would save me. But the only thing I had left was the blood-stained, misshapen grass ring clutched in my fist. I didn't die that night in the snow. Though sometimes in the dark hours of the morning, when the diner is silent, I wonder if perhaps I did. And everything since has been purgatory. But purgatory doesn't smell like bacon grease and stale coffee. I survived because a trucker named Sal found me half buried in a drift. He didn't ask questions. He just threw me in his cab, cranked the heat, and drove me 3 states away. I spent the next year working illegal construction jobs. Under the table, my hands hardening, my past receding like a bad dream. Then I found this town remote, forgotten, perfect. That I bought the diner with cash I'd saved. It was a ruin. Then I fixed the roof, scrubbed the floors, and renamed it simply The Stop. Then Gigi showed up. She was 10 years old, a runaway from a foster home 2 towns over. Skinny as a rail, eyes full of mistrust. I caught her trying to steal bread from the delivery truck. Instead of calling the cops, I made her a grilled cheese. She came back the next day and the next. Eventually, I fostered her. It wasn't hard. The system was overloaded, and nobody looked too closely at the quiet man who paid his taxes on time. She became my reason, the anchor that kept me from drifting away completely. Watching her wipe sauce from her chin in the back kitchen, oblivious to the storm brewing outside, I felt a familiar protectiveness surge. Gigi, I said, my voice steady. Finish up. Then go do your homework upstairs. Don't come down unless I call you. She looked at me, sensing the shift in my mood. Is it those ladies? Are they bad news? Just old news, I said. Go on. She grabbed an apple and bounded up the stairs. I listened until her door clicked shut. Then I walked back into the diner. They were still there. Or rather, they had come back. Isabelle was sitting at the corner booth, her posture rigid. Seraphina was standing by the door, pacing. We need to talk. Isabelle said, her voice commanding, the voice of a CEO. I picked up a rag and started wiping down the counter. I believe the sign says closed, ladies. Unless you're here to order takeout again. No, stop it. Seraphina snapped, walking over. She looked tired up close. The high-definition perfection of her face showed cracks, fine lines of stress, a dullness in her eyes. We saw the girl. Is she yours? She's my daughter, I said. It wasn't a lie. Biology is the least important part of fatherhood. I learned that the hard way. She looks nothing like you. Isabelle observed coldly. And Owen looks nothing like you. I shot back, not looking up. But that never stopped you from loving him, did it? Isabelle flinched. The hit landed. We didn't come here to fight, Seraphina said, her voice softening into the tone she used for her tragic heroine roles. We came because Owen is dying. I paused. The rag stopped moving. Dying. His kidneys are failing, Isabelle said, her voice devoid of emotion, though her hands were clenched on the table. Genetic defect. We didn't know until it was too late. He needs a transplant, but he has a rare blood type. The antibodies, it's complicated. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. And I was surprised to find that I meant it. Not because I cared about Owen, but because the hate that had once burned so hot had cooled into something like ash. It was just a fact, a tragedy happening to strangers. We need you to get tested. Seraphina blurted out. I looked at them, really looked at them. You're joking. You shared a womb environment, Isabelle said, desperate logic taking over. Technically, you aren't related, but there's a small chance, that your antigens might be compatible, or at least more compatible than a stranger's. I'm not his brother, I reminded them. I'm the imposter. Remember Noah, please. Seraphina stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled away before she could touch me. He asked for you in his delirium. He says he's sorry, he says he misses his big brother. That's a nice story, I said. But the answer is no, we'll pay you. Isabelle said, name your price, 1 million. Now, 5 million, we can buy this whole town for you. I laughed, it was a dry, rusty sound, you still don't get it. You took my life, you took my name. You threw me in a cage, and now you want my kidney. You people are cannibals. We saved you. Isabelle slammed her hand on the table. Do you think you just walked out of that prison? I paid the warden, I arranged for the truck driver to find you. I sent you away because if you stayed, Owen's guilt would have destroyed him. We did it for everyone's good. The revelation hung in the air that she thought she was the hero. She thought exiling me was an act of mercy. Get out. I said quietly. Noah. Get out, I roared, grabbing a glass from the counter and hurling it at the wall. It shattered, shards raining down on the linoleum. They flinched. Terrified for a second, they saw the man they had created in that cell. They retreated. But as they left, Seraphina looked back, tears streaming down her face. That he's going to die? Noah, and it will be your fault. Added to my file, I said, but they didn't leave town. The Prescotts don't take no for an answer. They set up camp in the only hotel in town, turning it into their command center. The next day, the accident started. My food delivery truck was canceled. Supply chain issues, the vendor said nervously. The health inspector showed up unannounced, citing me for a cracked tile and a flickering light bulb. Then the media arrived. Isabelle, no doubt, had leaked my location. Reporters swarmed the diner, cameras pressing against the glass. Fallen Sun found the secret life of Noah Prescott. Will he save his dying brother? I locked the doors. Gigi was scared. I sent her to stay with Mrs. Gable down the street, slipping her out the back way. I sat in the dark diner watching the vulture circle. That night my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Hello, brother. The voice was weak, raspy, but unmistakable. Owen. They shouldn't be doing this, he whispered. I told them to leave you alone. You never could control them. I said you just enjoyed the fruits of their cruelty. A cough rattled through the line. I know I was weak. I was jealous of you, Noah. Even after I got the name, the money, you were always the one they respected. The one Seraphina really looked at. She married you, I said flatly, but she married the Prescott heir. Owen corrected. She loves the spotlight, Noah. She loves the story, but at night she calls out your name in her sleep. I felt a twist in my gut. Why are you calling? To say goodbye, Owen said. And to ask you one thing, not for a kidney. Just tell me how to make this scampi properly. I tried for years, it never tasted right. I closed my eyes, the absurdity of it. He was dying, and he wanted a recipe. Garlic. I said softly. You have to roast the garlic first until it's sweet, and use white wine. Not lemon juice for the deglaze. Roast the garlic, he repeated, his voice fading. Okay, thanks, brother. The line went dead. 2 days later, the diner caught fire. It was arson, a brick through the window. A Molotov cocktail. Standard intimidation tactics, but sloppy. I got out the fire department, saved the structure. But the kitchen was gutted. I stood in the ashes, smelling the smoke of my second life burning down. Isabelle pulled up in a black limousine. She rolled down the window. An unfortunate accident. She said coolly, insurance might cover it. But it will take months, years. You did this. I can rebuild it, she countered. Better than before. I can send Gigi to the best private schools. I can give you your life back, Noah. Just take the test. I looked at the blackened shell of my diner. Then I looked at the text message on my phone from Mrs. Gable. Gigi is crying. She wants to come home. I had nothing left to lose except Gigi. And if I fought them, they would destroy her too. Fine. I said I'll take the test. But on my terms, name them. I want Seraphina to admit the truth publicly. I want a press conference. She admits she lied. She admits she framed me. She clears my name. Isabelle's eyes narrowed. That will ruin her career. That's the price, I said. Take it or leave it. Isabelle dialed a number. She spoke in low, rapid tones. Then she hung up. Done. The hospital was private, sterile, and expensive. I lay on the gurney, watching the blood flow through the tube into the collection bag. The test results had come back positive. Against all odds, against all biology. I was a match. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it a cosmic joke. But the transplant was scheduled for the next morning. But first, the press conference. I sat in the back of the auditorium, bandaged arm resting on my knee. Seraphina stood at the podium. She wore no makeup. She looked small. 8 years ago she began. Her voice trembling, I lied. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Noah Prescott never hurt me. He never stole from his family. He was the best man I ever knew. And I destroyed him because I was ambitious. Because I wanted to be a star more than I wanted to be a good person. She wept real tears this time. I am sorry to Noah and to the public. She stepped down, her career was over. The internet was already tearing her apart. Isabelle stood beside me satisfied. It's a start, I said. The surgery took 10 hours. When I woke up, I felt like I'd been kicked by a horse. My side throbbed. Owen. Isabelle was in the room. I said she looked lighter. She said his body accepted the kidney. He's producing urine. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery. I nodded, closing my eyes. Good. Now give me the check. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $10 million and the deed to a house in California. This is for Gigi, she said, and Noah. I looked at her. Thank you, she whispered. For being his brother, even when we didn't deserve it. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it so I never have to see any of you ever again. I healed. I took the money, I took Gigi. We moved to the coast. I didn't open a diner, I bought a small vineyard. I grew grapes, I learned to make wine. Gigi went to a good school. She made friends, she stopped looking over her shoulder. 6 months after the surgery, a package arrived, there was no return address. Inside was a small box and a letter. The scampi was delicious, I finally made it right. Seraphina ate it, she cried. We're getting a divorce. She can't look at me without seeing what she did to you. And I can't look at her without seeing what I let happen. Isabelle stepped down as CEO. She's traveling, trying to find a soul. I think I'm alive. But I'm alone in this big house. You one brother. You were always the real Prescott. The name doesn't make the man. The heart does not keep the ring. Owen, I opened the small box. Inside was a diamond ring. Massive, flawless. The ring Seraphina had promised me all those years ago. The biggest, most beautiful wedding ring in the world. I looked at it. It sparkled in the California sun. It was cold hard. Valuable. I walked out to the vineyard. The soil was rich and dark. I dug a small hole near the roots of a young vine. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the other ring. The dried grass ring stained with old blood. I put both rings in the hole. The diamond and the grass. The promise and the betrayal. The love and the hate, I covered them with dirt. I packed it down. Dad. Gigi was running down the hill, waving a report card. I got an in math, I smiled a real smile. It didn't hurt anymore. That's my girl, I called out. I walked toward her, leaving the buried rings behind. The soil would digest them both. The grapes would grow, the wine would be sweet. And I was finally truly free. The end. It worked. Noah.